What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And today we are going to cover what was supposed to be yesterday's topic until things got sidetracked by Hotaru being released, amongst other things. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Seven Knights Stones and have a discussion really quickly about the Seven Knights characters as a whole. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Helps me out a ton as a new YouTuber. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we get into what stones you should be using on these characters, because I've heard a few people been asking about, kind of which stones make sense. Definitely the Seven Knights stones make the most sense in most any scenario with these characters, but there are quite a few different ones that you can choose from, and we can take a look at those real quick. But before we dive too deep into this, I do want to talk about another topic with these characters, and we'll kind of do it in conjunction with looking at these, because these guys here are going to be the big reason as to why this is a talking point right now. So I've seen a lot of people discussing, debating, arguing about the Seven Knights characters and their impact on the game. There are two different camps of people. There are people who really enjoy this collab and think that these characters are really cool and don't mind them all being extremely good for whatever reason. Or there is the other camp of people who are a little bit more upset about the fact that these characters don't necessarily, I don't want to say discount the rest of the characters in the game, specifically our fellow King of Fighters characters, but more so the fact that they tend to just be a little over the top. So, coming into this collab, we all kind of had this assumption or fear, whatever you want to call it, that these characters were going to shift the meta in a huge way based solely around the fact that this is a Netmarble IP, and therefore they were going to be treating it with kind of the gloves off approach to things. And, they really did. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. These characters, for whatever reason, are extremely good and really do change the game in a lot of ways. Some of it has to do with the stats on these characters already being very high inherently, and they just get more and more ridiculous with some of these Seven Knights stones, which we've kind of gone over in the past on this channel, but being able to have two sources of a 10% increase to attack, in most cases, that's going to be the stones you're going to use for these characters. Basically, in essence, if you're running a full set, all three of them maxed out on these characters, that equals out to about 60% attack increase to these characters, which, I can go ahead and show you for the umpteenth time. I know you all are probably tired of me doting over this character, but, just as an example here, my Dellons, on top of already having a ton of damage on his darkness abilities, 64,000 attack. So that is not even as high as I could easily get it. As you can see here, his equipment is not even an attack-based card set. So, yeah, I mean, it could only get higher with certain fast sets, like a Leah set, obviously, or even a Akane set. So, yeah, these characters are extremely good. And so it's one of those things where you can kind of take it one of two ways. You can either say, okay, we're getting into an era now where we're looking at characters that have been released recently, like Mr. Karate, that do tend to be a little over the top as far as their damage output goes, and this is kind of the trend we're going to see. Power creep is a thing in any game. Or you can be the type of person that looks at it as, oh, well, this is just Netmarble wanting to maximize on the interest and, of course, at the end of the day, the money on these characters, because they're their characters and they control this IP and they can do with it whatever they like. And so, honestly, I'm in the camp that says, don't get too upset about this. It is what it is. At least these characters are cool. At least they have an interesting aesthetic to them. I haven't heard anybody say outright, that these characters are horrible, they hate them, they look stupid, whatever. These characters are cool. Dellons is, yes, he's an edgelord, but he's awesome. I mean, he turns into a giant demon monster. I mean, what more do you need? And then if you just are here for waifu reasons, I mean, you got Shane, or you have the thick queen herself, Eileene. So, these characters, they're awesome. And, also, we did get the best free unit in the game that's ever been released up to this point with Rachel. So for those of you who don't have the ability to max out a K and have one of the absolute best burn-based characters in the game for such modes as Guild Raid Hard mode and things of that nature, this is really good for you. So what I'm saying is it's okay to, and you are right in thinking, yes, these characters do in some ways minimize the KOF characters. That's completely okay to feel that way because they do in the end. At the end of the day, they do outperform a lot of those characters. But at the same time, 6 months down the road from now, I doubt we're going to be looking at these characters and going, wow, every KOF character since has been just awful by comparison. That's not going to happen. Power creep is going to be a thing. So being that these guys kind of, I don't want to say usher that era in, being that these guys do kind of, however, put that in a spotlight, it's going to be what it's going to be. But, I think that had it not been for the stones, these characters would be a little bit less divisive. But it is what it is, guys. I mean, we can't really argue with the fact that really they did do us a few favors with this collab. This has been a fun collab. This is a good collab. It's not a bad collab. If you're a meta chaser, this is the best collab you've ever seen because these characters are so meta, it's not even funny. In fact, they pretty much are the meta right now. So it is what it is. Don't get too bent out of shape about it.
What's wrong with you, bro? What the heck? You tripping, bro? You tripping?
Just enjoy pulling for them. If you absolutely, for whatever reason, hate them, pass on them. I would never recommend doing so. I think that you should at least go for a couple of them, go in on one of the banners. I'm sure there's somebody there that you enjoy for whatever reason, but don't get too bent out of shape, is what I'm saying. So anyway, that's kind of something I wanted to touch on because a lot of people have been talking about that. My opinion is, again, it is what it is. The game's going to shift in a million different directions between now and whenever. Hopefully this never happens. It will, though, eventually, whether it's a year down the road or 3 years down the road. Whenever this game is on its way out, these characters are no longer even probably going to be meta. So enjoy them now, enjoy them for what they are, or just save your rubies. At the end of the day, that's a silver lining in and of itself. You can save your rubies if you absolutely hate these characters for whatever reason. So anyway, just wanted to touch on that, and then we'll go ahead and talk about stones here. So let's go ahead and look at the Seven Knights collab stones here and talk about which ones you're wanting to kind of prioritize. So it's very simple, very straightforward. So all of these different square stones, hexagon stones, circle stones, there's going to be several different kinds, and you'll be able to tell by the names of them what stats they are going to be buffing. Really, when you get down here, I would kind of ignore those for the most part. Really, the only two sets that I think you're definitely going to want to make sure you get are going to be these defensive ones for Rudy, potentially, because he does have defense to attack conversion on his kit with, I believe, his S1, and we can double check that in a second. And then for the vast majority of these characters, you're going to want this first set, which is the flat attack increase. Again, when this is maxed out, it's going to be a 10% for this first effect, and then this second effect is inherently 10%. So definitely want to go for these for characters like Dellons, which is what is on my Dellons that you've seen in all my countless showcases, my Eileene as well, and then Rachel and Shane. So those are going to be the characters you're probably going to want the set for. And this is a fun set. I mean, you're looking at 10% chance to gain super armor for 0.6 seconds when a fighter is attacked. I believe that goes up to, I can double check here when it is fully maxed out and see exactly the amount that goes up to. That goes up to 1.5 seconds. So 10% chance, 1.5 seconds when attacked. Always nice to have that as kind of a safety net. Helps end combos and such whenever you are kind of having issues. Usually more so a talking point in PvP modes. And then, of course, you have this one here, which is going to give you power charge, 2% every 1 second for 10 seconds when using Awaken skills. And then, finally, this guy here is going to decrease enemy defense by 20% for 4 seconds upon landing a active skill. So again, this set here, the flat 10% to attack set, the attack conversion set, that's the set you're going to want for characters like Dellons, Eileene, Rachel, and Shane. In the instance with those characters where you may not necessarily, for whatever reason, want those, there's a potential there, and I have not tested this, nor have I seen enough information out there to get a good gauge. There is a chance, I would assume, just based on mathematics and just kind of how this game works, that some of the gold R stones would make sense as well. I can show you what I mean here. But some of the gold stones, and those are going to be the ones that you normally would get from, game modes like some of the dungeons and so on and so forth, like Immortal Victor and so on. These ones that boost your dot damage, your damage over time, if I can hit the right one. Some of these, like the ones for Darkness, the ones for Burn, might be good specifically for characters that they relate to, like, say, for instance, Dellons for Darkness, Rachel for Burn, and then Eileene for Shock. Some of those would make decent substitutes. In fact, I would say that just based on the fact that you are getting a little bit extra on this secondary effect here, there is every chance that they might actually be better in a lot of scenarios. I just have not had a chance to test it, so therefore I cannot tell you. But I can tell you that being able to increase attack by 10% inherently on some of these stones, and then having the increase to the specific type, so long as it's equipped to the correct type character, giving the extra 12%, that's an extra 2%. So your mileage may vary, but just take that for what you will. Again, I have not been able to test that. So yeah, those are going to be your options for stones for these characters, and you can get these stones fairly easily. If you go into the exchange shop, I actually just bought a few, but you'll be able to see here, you'll be able to get them here if you are grinding the collab mission, and then you will also be able to craft them, and you can get up to 10 of those from the exchange shop. I just want to show you here, I can actually craft another one here. You can craft up to 5 from here. So, if you've got a few of these characters, definitely worth getting these things. One thing I do want to mention, though, before I kind of forget, and while we're in here, don't forget that this card exists. Some people forget. This card, actually, you can use the same currency you use to get these boxes for this battle card. And this battle card isn't bad. I mean, you're basically looking at increases attack by 3.2%, decreases skill cooldowns, which is always beneficial, and then increases attack by an initial 10% for 5 seconds and grants super armor for 1.5 seconds when tagging in. This is more of a PvE card. It's not a card that you're probably going to use very often, but it is an exclusive card. It is here for the collab, and while this collab, yes, it is a 7 Knights IP that is owned by Netmarble and probably guaranteed to come back in the future, I would still get it. So definitely worth having at least one of. But yeah, wanted to mention that because I have not heard a lot of people talk about it, probably because it's not going to be meta, but it's there. So, but that's going to basically cover the majority of them. And then the only other character to really talk about, we've already kind of briefly touched on this, but the only other one in these stones that kind of makes sense to me, and again, some people might prefer to build their characters differently, but you do have these defensive stones, and therefore Rudy, being a defensive type with defense to attack conversion, works out for him. So this set, probably best for him as opposed to these attack ones for the rest of the characters. So yeah, if you want to go for those, go for those. If there is a specific R set that gives extra defense, maybe. I don't know of one that would be better than this to my mind. So yeah, so that's going to be it. Basically, to summarize, you want to either have a full set of these first 3 for all the characters not named Rudy, or you want the corresponding R stone for their dot damage. Otherwise, you are going to want the defensive one, which is the second series, for Rudy. So hopefully that helps some of you guys and answers the question of, which stones are best, and hopefully also kind of gets into the idea that these stones really are what put these characters over the top. So that is that topic. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. And then let's go ahead and move on. I want to talk about a comment that was left by one of my viewers as a comment of the day, and it's actually super helpful for a lot of different people. So let's hop into that real quick and talk about it. So today's comment of the day comes from Reddit, and is going to be IAsk_9's post here, and he points out the fact that in the core dungeon, it tends to take a lot of time for some people who don't have more maxed out characters, and so therefore, if you actually avoid unlocking the core to unlock the finishing move for certain characters and made kind of a team as more so just a core farming team that is not going to be able to spam finishers, you'll actually be able to get through those much quicker, which is a great tip and actually something I had not thought of for new players. And yesterday's video was more so geared towards new to intermediate players that obviously aren't above level 300 and have tons and tons of resources saved up. Of course, priorities shift and change whenever you get to this stage in the game, but for players below those numbers, players that are just getting into the game, this is a very nice tip. I greatly appreciate you, IAsk9, for putting that out there and bringing that to my attention. Definitely will help people. Another thing I wanted to bring up, which was brought up several times yesterday, is you can actually buy in the secret shop here some core boxes. Now, for me personally, this may be a double-edged sword for newer players or lower level players, because gold being spent on these boxes, honestly, the return on investment for those people who don't have millions and millions of gold stored up might not be worth it. Yes, you can get these 10 times selection boxes a couple of times a day, I believe up to 4 times a day. That's a possibility. I could be wrong there, but I know it's more than once a day. And that might be beneficial to those players, but I don't know that it necessarily will be. This is more so for people who have millions of gold saved up, that, again, have been playing the game for a long time. But this is there if you want to use it. More so, in my opinion, for players who have been playing for a while, not necessarily for new players, but your mileage may vary. You might have tons of resources saved up because you hit this game hard and decided you really wanted to catch up, which, good on you. But either way, just wanted to point that out. So that is going to be today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and found it beneficial. If you did not get a chance yet, I did put out a full Should You Summon on Hotaru, our newest Fest character that was added into the unified pool last night, and kind of went into whether or not you should summon her. So if you want to watch that video, it should be in the description for this video, as well as on my channel. Again, I appreciate all of you. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this daily content and want to see more of it. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace.